Listen, Ironheart just rewrote the Marvel rulebook. And by the end of this, you'll see exactly how she changed the game. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Adam Kennedy Show, formerly the AK Show podcast, where sports and entertainment collide. I'm your host, AK The Ref, and this right here is the audio only version of my full Ironheart review. So for the next few episodes, it's going to be audio version. It will be on the YouTube channel, so you can still enjoy the same content. It's just not a video version, only audio version. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And thank you for suiting up with me. All right, we gotta get into it because from the very first scene, Ironheart made it clear this wasn't just another Marvel show. No. This was something personal, something you could really sink your teeth in. You really felt it. And that's why I love this so much. But we'll get into more of that later in this episode. So before we get into that, I got to get real for a moment, right? Marvel's female-led shows, right? They've taken heat that they never deserve. Like anything a Marvel does, somebody's always complaining about it, right? But like the Marvel female-led shows and movies as well. But we're just going to talk about the Disney Plus series like WandaVision, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel. They all push boundaries, and the critics and the trolls, the haters, they tried to label them as filler, as forced, as if stories led by women don't deserve the same spotlight. That's a bunch of BS, a bunch of bullshit. I'm not going to apologize for cussing, but you know what I mean. But Ironheart, boy, this series doesn't just defend the female-led Marvel TV show. It flips the argument on its head. Riri Williams' journey proves that representation, when done right, can actually redefine the MCU, right? And that's not a shot to the other Marvel shows led by women. I thought those were all done right? Because you got to think about it. She-Hulk broke the fourth wall and got memed to death, even though that's what happens in the comics. And I don't even read the comics, and I fucking know that. But people had a fucking issue with it, right? Miss Marvel gave us a groundbreaking Muslim American hero, but was unfairly brushed aside as not important. And then you have Ironheart stepping into the ring with grit, tech, grief, and heart, showing us this isn't just about checking boxes. It's about telling powerful, authentic stories, which I think the other women-led shows have done, but Ironheart's getting the same hate for some fucking odd reason, and I have no earthly idea. So it's just the trolls, it's just the haters. So right here, so that's where I'm at on it, right? And let's give some quick credit where it's due, because the show that came before Ironheart actually paved the way. We got to give credit to the other shows. WandaVision. I fucking love WandaVision. Wanda, Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters, right? That just wasn't just a quirky sitcom parody. It was one of the MCU's most raw explorations of grief. It asks what happens when you lose, when your loss is so great, you bend reality to cope and put everybody under your spell, right? That's what was at. And I fucking love WandaVision. I fucking loved it. Right? And then you have She-Hulk. Listen, like I've said on here, if you heard the show before, we ain't gonna have no She-Hulk hate on here. Well, I will block you, and I don't care. Right? I'm not gonna have just hateful comments about stuff. If you just want to say, yeah, I didn't like the show, cool. But if we're just gonna have hate and be hateful, I'm gonna block you. Right? Because She-Hulk wasn't afraid to poke fun at the MCU machine itself, breaking the fourth wall, and showing us that being a superhero doesn't erase sexism or double standards, satirizing fan expectations. It broke the fourth wall, which, like I said, it did in the comics, and even I know that. And I don't even read the comics. It's a simple Google search will help you understand this. But people I don't know what people want and expect. Just sit back and fucking enjoy it, right? And then you have Miss Marvel. She gave us ground level, deeply cultural story of family, faith, and identity. Something Marvel desperately needed, but when we actually get it, people don't like it. And I don't know why. It makes no sense. But Ironheart doesn't copy any of those. It learns from them. It takes the emotional depth, the self-awareness, and the cultural I cannot say the word I'm looking for, specificity, and then it ties it all to something brand new, right? A young black woman genius at the crossroads of science and sorcery. Yeah, sorcery. You know what I'm talking about if you watch Ironheart. And let's be honest, the MCU needs this type of energy. Like the haters say female leads don't sell, but Riri proved the exact opposite, right? She just didn't carry the show, she commanded it, right? And I feel like all the Marvel shows with female leads have commanded it and carried the show, right? Not just carried, they've all commanded it in their own way. But this just felt a little bit different. They're like, we gotta make this something special. And I feel like they did that, right? And that and that's where we'll start. We will start with Riri Williams herself, who she is, what she represents, and why her journey already feels bigger than just another origin story. Silence my phone, right? My guys, we gotta silence phones, bro. We just gotta silence phones. We don't need all that, right? All right, right? This is just not another origin story, right? Riri Williams isn't your typical Marvel hero, right? She's not the billionaire like Tony Stark. She doesn't have a mansion. She's not royalty. She's not born into tech wealth like I cannot say her name. Shuri, right? She's a teenage genius from Chicago, piecing together her future with whatever scrap she can find, right? Because she was at MIT, she got kicked out. She took her suit, but they were like, nah, this is something you built here. Even though you built it, it's still ours. So she took it and had to fucking redesign the whole thing and things like that. So, right, she had to redesign, she had to take what she could and just use whatever scraps she could find and piece this suit back together, right? And you take the city of Chicago. It's just not the backdrop, it's the character in the story, right? It's that grit, that heartbeat, struggles. They define Riri as much as her mind does. This isn't Tony Stark in Malibu, right? This isn't a girl soldering wires in a garage. This is her in a garage soldering wires, proving brilliance doesn't have to come with privilege, right? But underneath all that genius, well, there's a lot of grief, deep, layered grief, right? Right? Riri lost her father, she lost her stepdad, and Natalie, her best friend. And that pain right there is what fuels her more than her IQ could ever do. She builds because she refuses to be powerless again. When her friend got shot, she felt powerless. So this is not about her wanting to be some genius tech person and be all over the front page in the news. She's doing this because she wants to be able to protect the people she loves. That's why she does this, right? And when it comes and when it comes to John, here's the hard truth. He didn't, here's the hard truth. After a brutal greenhouse fight, Riri leaves him behind as the oxygen runs out. She just didn't kill him with her hands, but she couldn't save him either. And that choice haunts her. There's deep layered grief and emotion in this that, like, when that happened, she has to live with that. And it haunts her, right? That's why you bring up John's death, because it was like, if I let you live, you're gonna kill me, you're gonna tell the hood, so I have to do this. But at the same time, that's going to haunt you. That's what I'm talking about, that deep grief, and it's layered in the show. And that's why Riri matters in the MCU. She's not a replacement Iron Man. She's proof that brains, hustle, and heart can rise from anywhere. And she shows us the real world side of being a genius hero. But what makes this show truly unique isn't just Riri. It's who's by her side or in her head. So we gotta talk about Natalie. Listen, Marvel has always had its AI sidekicks. You think of the most notable one, Jarvis, right? Their assistants, voices with personalities. Sure, but never more than tools. Ironheart changes that, right? Natalie isn't just code. She's Riri's best friend, reborn as an AI, right? Because Riri is trying to create an AI from her mind. You watching the show, and she falls asleep, and all she's thinking about is her best friend. So when she wakes up, boom, boom, Riri's best friend, Natalie, is reborn as AI. And that flips the whole emotional script, because this isn't Tony having a digital butler, right? This is Riri having her dead best friend living in her head as AI. Imagine grieving someone, but then hearing their voice every time you suit up. Imagine not knowing if you're moving forward or stuck in the past. That's what makes Natalie different. She's not just like a comic relief. She's a co-lead. It's Riri and Natalie, her best friend as AI. She's humor, she's grounding, and she's a stiff reminder that grief doesn't go away. You just carry it differently. And that is facts. Everybody grieves differently. You never fully get over somebody, passing away that you lost. And for us as an audience, that right there made the AI feel real. I didn't feel like that was AI. I didn't feel like that was a Jarvis. I felt like this was something different when I was watching it, right? This isn't Siri with sass. It's friendship, trauma, and loyalty, all coded into the armor. And it raises the question, would you take that deal? If you could hear your best friend again, would you? And speaking of deals and dilemmas, Ironheart isn't just tech and AI, it's also a little bit of magic. That's where things got a little bit wild, right? The MCU has always danced with science and magic before. Thor told us what humans call magic is just advanced science. Doctor Strange showed us there are forces beyond comprehension. Wanda gave us power. Well, Wakanda gave us the vibranium power, but Riri, she's a teenager with a wrench suddenly thrown into the collision of science and sorcery. Enter the Staten family. Zelma ties Riri's tech to the mystical. Madeline brings Karmatage wisdom with a side of humility. Together, they force Riri to confront something she just can't logic her way through. Because when you're battling the hood, you need a little magic, right? Am I right? And that's the beauty of this arc. It just isn't tech versus magic, it's youth versus tradition, logic versus faith, right? You got all that, and it's something cool to see when you mix the magic with the tech. And for Marvel, this isn't just another theme, it's the next theme. Because the world Riri's stepping into, it's just not wires and bullets, it spells demons and devils, mystical magic. You know what I'm talking about, the hood, right? We'll get to the hood. Just hold on. And when the sparks fly, literally, the action isn't just filler. Every fight tells us who Riri is becoming. So we got to break down some of these fight scenes, right? Some of these fights that we saw, which I thought the action was great. I really did. And right, you had the rooftop one fight. This wasn't just a cool shot. It showed Riri improvising on the fly, patching armor mid-battle while still taking hits. That's not Tony Stark level polish. That's survival with brilliance. She's over here losing pieces of certain, finding, I gotta fight. I gotta get out of this, right? And then you get to Riri versus Zeke Stain. Once his Joe McKilligutty cover was blown, Zeke reveals bionic upgrades and a philosophy at odds with Riri's. Their class isn't just power versus power, it's ethics versus ego. He dismantles her suit piece by piece, spine rip and all, proving he can win, but chooses to spare her, warning her to leave Chicago. I was like, I really thought he was going to kill her, but at the same time, he's like, just get out. It's not worth it. That mercy says everything about how complicated Zeke is and how his personal fight has become for the both of them, right? Because he had a complicated past. If you go back and watch Iron Man 2, his dad was the villain in that, right? So he's got that's why he had a different name. He didn't want to be associated with his dad no more, right? And that brings me to the final confrontation with Parker Robbins, aka the Hood. Give a round of applause for Parker Robbins. Now, Anthony Ramos, who played the Hood, I thought he did a fabulous job, right? The final confrontation with those two, it was brilliant. It had me, right? Riri in her magic-infused armor built in Gary's garage, but she didn't have her AI, because once she infused the magic into the tech, it made Natalie go away. So she's fighting this without her AI by her side. She has magic, which she needs probably more than AI, but she didn't want to lose Natalie, right? So she got this magic-infused armor that she built. She faces a foe cloaked in a demonic power. Like, the Hood gives him the power, but it's also destroying him at the same time, right? At one point, he pins her down, the hoodie crackling with darkness. This scene is tense and personal, right? Because you find out later that the Hood finds out later that Riri let his cousin John die at the greenhouse. And so that's what makes this personal for him. And he's going out and he's like, I want to end you. But Riri, she doesn't use her raw power. She doesn't try to match his raw power. Instead, she plays his strengths against him, right? This fight scene was brilliant, I thought. She projects a hologram of herself, tricking him into attacking thin air while the real Riri stealthily takes the hood. As he reaches for it exposed, she removes it, stripping him of his mystical power all in one swift motion. It really had me thinking that I was like, damn, she did that, right? That's the way it played out. I was like, it was like watching a chessboard movie in real time. A move, right? It was like watching somebody play chess and using pawns to think, oh, I'm gonna do this, but really I'm gonna do this, right? He lunges, Parker lunges, cloak glowing with demonic energy, and for a split second, you think Riri's done, then blast, smoke clears, and her body drops, only for it to fizzle into a static hologram. Fucking brilliant. The real Riri already moving behind him with her armor sparking from damage, but her mind sharper than ever. She times it perfectly, grabs the cloak mid-swipe and forces it off his shoulders. Like, nope, this is mine now. You no longer have this. Suddenly, the fire dies, the power is gone, and Parker Robbins is just the man. Again, panic, vulnerable, exposed. That's the difference. The hood had the magic, but Riri had the brains. And in the MCU, brains wins fights. That moment says it all. She didn't overpower the hood, she outsmarted him. And she walks out, helmet under her arm, Parker defenseless, reality reasserted. It's not about might, it's about mind, right? And that's what makes these action scenes so powerful. They aren't just CGI explosions. No. The growth. Every punch is a lesson. Every escape is homework for the next test. Yes, you gotta learn. If you don't learn, you're always gonna get your ass beat. You gotta learn from these fights, right? You know what I'm saying. You gotta learn. And this goes in every aspect of life. If you fail, you gotta learn from that so you don't make the same mistake twice. And listen, none of this works without the rest of the cast. So we gotta give everyone their flowers, right? This show works because the ensemble feels lived in, right? Here's who's who accurately and why they matter, right? You got the heart in the home. We've already gone over Riri Williams, right? The prodigy with grit and grief, crafting a legacy on her own terms. You got Ronnie Williams, Riri's mother, fierce, founding mother. The stakes feel human because of her. She's trying to find out, how can I help you? I want to help you. Please talk to me. That motherly love that she has for her daughter. You got Gary Williams, the late stepfather, whose memory fuels Riri's resolve. You got Xavier Washington, Natalie's brother. His pain and loyalty keep Riri accountable. Also, Riri's love interest, right? And then you have the flashbacks with young Riri that make present day choices hit harder because you see those flashbacks with her stepdad and you be like, damn, okay, that makes sense, right? And then you have her best friend and the voice in the suit, Natalie Washington, aka Natalie, right? The soul of the story, both lost friend and now AI inside of her head, which is gotta be crazy, right? And then you have the Mystic Bridges, right? You have Madeline Stanton, right? Ex Karmatage trainee, wisdom, warmth, and warnings, friend of Ronnie Williams, Riri's mother. Then you have Zelma Stanton, the vital bridge between code and craft, the one that helps put the magic into Riri's tech of her armor, of her Ironheart armor, right? To help her face the mystical magic of Parker Robbins, aka the Hood, right? And then you got Parker's crew. We got to give them their flowers. You got to give the anti-heroes their flowers, the villains. You got to give, like I said, I already gave Parker Robbins, the Hood, his flowers, right? Anthony Ramos did a fabulous job. You felt the street charisma, plus you add the demonic cloak, a misfit turned menace. Like, at one point you find out, oh, he was nothing, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's made this deal with the devil, and now he's got power. power, and he even wants to go take over his own dad's company because his dad kicked him out of the fucking house. Parker Robinson ain't something to be messed with when he's got that hood. Then you got John, his cousin, Life Man Enforcer, who's deaf. After, like I said, Riri reads him in the oxygen drain greenhouse, becomes her moral scar. She becomes something that she has to live with. And he's always been great. Manny Montana, he's always been great in everything he does, right? And then you got Stuart Clark, who's Tech Chaos, short-lived in the show, who got killed off by Parker Robin. He got the axe. Boom boom, right? And then you got the clown, who's the pyro wild card who keeps the pressure hot every time she's doing something, especially in the fight scene. Riri, she's like, I'm coming to get you. You never know what fucking kind of surprise she's gonna have, right? Then you have Slug, the Matterport hacker with style and purpose, a scene stealer who expands MCU's representation. Then you got Jerry Blood, Zoe and Roz Blood, sibling muscle, loyalty with Knuckles. They're gonna come in here and beat somebody's ass, right? You got all that, and then you got Ezekiel Stain, right? Who's dad in Iron Man 2. Smart, wounded, dangerous, revealed after his Joe McGillicuddy cover. When that went away, it's like, this is who he is. And then he becomes bionic, right? He wants to be something powerful. And then you got Mephisto, who shows up at the end, the quiet precision temper whose deals always come due. You're wondering, how did he get this hood? That's how. The devil inside, right? And you got the neighborhood, like you got Landon, the kid who reminds Riri who she's fighting for. The kid who helped with her when she was rebuilding her tech with the magic, right? This ensemble doesn't feel like guest stars. They feel like a world, one that challenges and breaks Riri in equal measure. And speaking of breaking, let's revisit. We gotta revisit the big emotional moments that defined this season, right? Because this is the only season of Ironheart we're gonna get. But I'm hoping I'll get to that later at the end of this episode. These moments are the scenes that stayed with you long after the credits rolled. John's death after the greenhouse fight, Riri leaves him in as the oxygen drains. It's brutal and it cements the stakes. It was either him or her, and she has to live with that. That's the choice she made. Because if she lets him out, he's telling John she's done. Goodbye, Riri. So she left him in there. And that's something she's gonna have to live with. The Riri versus Zeke, a mirror match between two prodigies. He tears down her suit, but chooses not to finish her, leaving a warning instead. Like, after there was a brutal fight and he's like ripping her armor apart. I'm like, bro, she's about to get ripped apart. But then he lets her live and tells him, hey, you got to go. And then you have Natalie's AI arc, comfort, conflict, and the devastating costs when the magic power rebuild deletes Natalie, and you're like, oh fuck, she's got to go into this fight without Natalie. But she had what she needed to defeat the hood, which was the magic suit. And then you got Ronnie versus Riri, a mother's love squaring up against her daughter's calling, trying to figure out, how can I help you? How can I be here for you, right? And then the hoods slide into corruption, from striver to pawn of dark power, to trying to build something to have money and power. And then we see the real reason he's doing this, because he wants to take over his dad's company. He wants to be the man in charge, right? And these just aren't plot points. They're scars. They shape Riri's armor more than any blueprint could ever, right? And I've got to throw this question to you all, because this is where I think fans are split. Was Riri right to leave John behind, or should she have found another way? And do you think Zeke sparing her was genuine mercy, or just strategy for the long game? And the biggest one, when we see Natalie at the end, do you believe that's really her, or a Mephisto trick? Gotta drop your thoughts in the comments to those three. Drop them in the comments, message me, or hit me up on the socials, because these are the kinds of questions that will shape Ironheart's role in the MCU as a whole, right? You get questions like that, they need answers. And that brings us to the devil in the details. Literally, Mephisto. We find out it was him all along, behind the hood. Quiet, calculating, a little bit terrifying. He didn't need CGI fire to scare us. All he needed was an offer. Natalie's return. what do you really want? Right? And then it is implied that as she's sitting there talking to him, Riri accepted. That's what it felt implied to me. Because we do see Natalie again in the garage where she died years back. We see her again, but here's the chilling part of it. Riri doesn't understand what she's giving up because all Mephisto says is, listen, I can give you what you want, but you give me something in return. And listen, it's something you really don't need. She made the deal with the devil without reading the fine print. You always got to read the fine print. And in Marvel history, Mephisto's bills Mephisto. So I don't know. Where does that leave us? We with a future full of questions. We have questions and we have no answers. So we got to understand what's next for Riri Williams. On the surface, you might say go back to college, maybe try to get back into MIT. You know, she could lead her community in Chicago, or maybe even a slot on the Young Avengers roster. But this show set her up for something much bigger, something much darker, right? Because let's not forget, Riri if she did accept the deal from Mephisto, that's not a one and done cliffhanger. That's a ticking time bomb. And in Marvel lore, Mephisto's deal always come due. And when they do, it's devastating. Trust me, it's devastating. You know, you make a deal with the devil gonna come collect. When they gonna come collect on their deal. So I don't know what that means for Riri in the wider MCU. Your picture, I mean, we're on a collision course with Avengers Doomsday. That's where we're heading. We're heading on a collision course with that's not the next Marvel movie because we have Spider-Man Brand New Day next July, but the next big movie story-wise is Avengers Doomsday. And when the heroes face impossible odds, is Ironheart really free to fight? If she's going, I don't even know if she's part of that movie. Because if she is she really free to fight after making a deal with the devil? Or does Mephisto have his hooks in her? Right? You gotta think of all this, right? Then after Doomsday comes Avengers Secret Wars, the collapse of the multiverse. Does Mephisto use that chaos to collect on his deal? Could Riri, one of the MCU's brightest new minds, become the biggest liability? These are all questions that we will find out. Not was it next December when Doomsday comes out, Avengers Doomsday? Well, these are questions we'll find out. Well, we will definitely find it out. I'm excited for it, right? And then there's Natalie. We can't forget about Natalie. Seeing her back is emotional. We think Riri accepted the deal because when they show Natalie in the garage, she looks somewhat confused, like, what just happened, right? But you gotta understand, here's the question. Is that really her? Or is that just something Mephisto created? An echo, a trap, a string he can pull to keep Riri on his leash? And if she is real, which I think she is, she looks so confused. I think Riri accepted the deal. Natalie gets brought back to life in the garage where she got shot and killed, right? I'm leaning to believe if that's really Natalie, how will Natalie feel knowing her second chance at life came with Riri trading away something she doesn't yet understand? And how is Natalie's brother going to react to this? How is everybody going to react to this? That's what I want to see. I really want to see, did she accept the deal? Which I think she did. And how's everybody else going to react to Natalie being alive after they they know she got killed and they went to her funeral and no, she's not there no more. So that's going to be interesting. This is why we need a season 2. Why can't we get a season 2? Why we gotta wait till she's thrown somewhere in the MCU, in the movies or something where it might get lost? This is a story to me that's worth still telling. I want to see where that goes, but we definitely need to see Ironheart in the MCU on the big screen, right? Young Avengers, something like that. I want to see what happens, right? I feel like that's the beauty of Ironheart's setup, right? I want to see what happens. She's just not another new hero. She's Marvel's wild card. If you think about it, she's making deals with the devil. She's bringing her friend back to life. How does that affect what could happen in the future? Her journey could save the MCU or it could doom it. And either way, we'll be here breaking it down every step of the way. Trust me. If something interesting happens, we will be here every step of the way, breaking anything that happens MCU related. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at on it. That's all I got for today. Thank you for tuning in to the Adam Kennedy Show. I really do appreciate it. Listen, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share the episode, like the episode. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the audio version. I know there's not going to be a lot. There's going to be something on the screen. There's going to be the thumbnail of the episode along with audio waves just to keep it interesting. So if you're riding in the car, you have it playing, you don't really have to pay attention and watch the video. You can just listen. And that's why I'm doing this for everybody out there. On the next episode of The Adam Kennedy Show, I'll be comparing today's biggest athletes, Mahomes, LeBron, Messi, Otani, and Roman Reigns, to the superheroes they embody. So trust me, this one you don't want to miss. Listen, I'm AK the Ref, and this has been another episode of The Adam Kennedy Show, where sports and entertainment collide. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.